Hey, what's up guys? This is Oakley and we're back in Rome 2. This is going to be a game of myself playing as Macedon against my opponent Pontus. I'm going to go ahead and slow motion this. So, I've been making the rounds of the Total War games as you guys saw. Seems like you guys really like Napoleon. I definitely had a blast playing it, probably because the gameplay is just so different from the other games. Like, for example, Shogun. Ooh, that's an interesting tree texture there. But anyways, Shogun is kind of similar to the other ones because you do have a lot of melee combat, so that's probably why you guys like Napoleon so much, is because it's so varied. Anyways, I'm playing Rome 2 because, well, Rome 2 is fun. And also there was a new patch actually they just added, so that's going to be doing a pretty good amount of aesthetic touches, so changing up. It looks like some of the graphics are looking a bit different, or maybe it's just the contrast with the other Total War games. But pieces like this, companions, look at the horse models and the armor, they look super sweet, and a bunch of other different tweaks here and there for aesthetics. I'll link below the changes to the patch. Anyways, my army is going to be facing off against the opponent in a semi-wooded, semi-hilly terrain, so I knew my opponent as Pontus was going to rely on cavalry and rely on archers. So my basic build to counter that is going to be to rely on strong cavalry, backed up by pikes, and of course long-range slingers. So my build basically has 5 slingers, 5 pikes, 2 swords, 1 archer, and then 3 of the Macedonian companion cav. 2 are going to be the actual companion cav with lancers. 1 of them is going to be the Aspis companion cav. My opponent is going to be probing on both sides with these Scythian horse archers, so he has 2 groups of 3. That's actually very good. It is good for not only scouting, but also baiting and poking and probing. So the best way to counter this is to stick in the woods and then try and pull these guys into traps. So for instance here, he didn't necessarily run into a trap, but he ran into my cav, so I can at least ward him off. But when I do that, what you'll see is these guys are just going to go ahead and turn around one by one and get some Parthian shots off back at my guys. So you don't necessarily have to pursue these guys very long, just enough to ward them off, keep them from pulling in here. The main thrust of my tactic is to make him, keep darting in and out, chasing these cav. I'm going to try and get him into a false sense of security, and then I'm going to bring in some of these guys over here. These are skirmishers. So finally, when my cav charge back, and as you can see, his own cavalry units move forward, that's when I'm going to get my slingers to unleash. So that's what they're going to be doing on this flank. Similar thing is occurring on the other flank. Let's watch this. He's pulling his cav across here. That's going to be my cue to try and intercept them in the center. So you'll see me move these guys forward, as well as charging my cavalry here. I figured once this trap was sprung, he would try and retreat, so I'm going to try and pull those guys and seal off the trap. Over on this flank here, his guys are now seeing what's in the woods hiding for them. Let's go ahead and look at the return fire from my troops. So his companions are pretty heavily armored, and now we're going to get some of these shots off with my slingers here. Definitely loving the aesthetics now that I've gone and seen the old Total Wars. The aesthetics of this is just incredible compared to the other Total Wars. So I think the one mark that they blew out of the water with this game is definitely the graphics. Let's go ahead and actually put this back on play. Watch the slings getting off. So, maybe I only get 1 or 2 volleys off, but it's enough to start the blood pool. You'll see later in the battle what I'm talking about right here. There's going to be a ton of death and chaos right here. So I would say I came out at an advantage right there, and now you see here I knew those guys were going to respond, so I'm going to try and chase them, trap them between these guys and these companions over here. Let's go ahead and follow these troops. So I'm going to try and pin those guys between me. You can see the view of the companions. I really love the new skins. They look so great. So they're going to try and intercept, but keep in mind that I think they might have changed the unit movement speed. I'm not really sure. But yeah, you can see his troops are definitely getting out of my grasp. I do take a couple losses, the stragglers right there. I almost get in the distance. I'm about to close, but then I see that there are some pikes right there for support, so I'm going to have to pull back at the last moment. So this is probably not as far as you want to chase, because you can see I did lose, 5 guys, and soon to be a couple more as he wheels about. So you can't do this for extended periods of time. You definitely can't chase those guys needlessly. So I think I probably chased them for far too long. Yep, there you go. So that lost too many of my precious troops. So I'm going to pull back, but at least I do have, this is the trap I was talking about here, bait him into chasing my guys. And right here, yep, if he wants to go ahead and chase my guys, well then I have protection of an ambush laid here with my units. So these guys are going to be reforming, taking a look at his troops in the distance. This actually looks like a pretty sweet ambush. Yeah, so he's not exactly going to take the bait just now. I'm going to hold this flank here, again positioning myself in the forest. Over on this side, I'm going to push these guys forward, and this is going to be what is going to cause a massive fight on this flank, where I said before, this is going to be a pool of bodies right there. Looks like some of the critters of the forest are being let out. That's kind of, I don't know why they add these touches. It's not like anyone notices, but I guess when you do, it is kind of cool. I wonder what they do when they reach the cavalry. Okay, so they just run away from units. I know you can kill them. I've done that before, where you can enable your Roman troops to throw their pilla, at least in one of the mods, and you could like target some of the animals. So they are definitely interactable. Over on this flank, he's going to try and position himself in the forest up to my on this flank to try and push me back. So what I'm going to do is push forward in the forest with my pikes. That'll force them out because these are a hard counter. These guys, at least in cover, he can't attack them. Back that up with cavalry, and then try and push forward here to keep back the retreat. Over on this flank, my opponent is going in for a massive strike on my skirmishers. So he's going to charge in with his cavalry, get point blank shots on my guys. This is where it always pays to have support. So in the woods, yes, he'll charge out at me, but look at what he's going to be engaging with. Pikes. Especially right here, he gets his noble blood cav caught up in my Macedonians. Hopefully they'll drop their pikes soon. There you go. So that's going to keep his guys from doing too much damage. Gonna move forward here, and then my companions that were hidden in the forest there are gonna smash right into his cavalry on the side. Very epic engagement indeed. I love the graphics of this. He's gonna be counter-charging with his own cavalry here, always circling about. He's gonna try and get the drop on my troops here. Let's go ahead and turn on the banners. So he pulled out these cavalry that were about to charge to my pikes. These noble blood cav are getting cut up here, and most of my Rhodian slingers are gonna be doing more damage. Over here, I was saying I knew he was going to reinforce, so I'm going to try and prevent them from doing that by charging my companions and moving these guys up closer, so any reinforcement is going to be cut off. Over here, two of my Macedonian companion cav are going to be doing very well against his own troops. I love the updated graphics. It looks like they've given some new armor to the different troops. But this is going to be a pretty close fight in the beginning. However, with my Rhodians doing more damage and just the pure stats of the companions, I'm going to be able to just mess up his troops. So the fight is going to be evening up here on my end. And yeah, his troops are going to start breaking up, finishing off the last of his troops. So that's definitely a very bloody part of the battle. And his own Pontic cav that were torn up right there are going to retreat. They're going to try and pull out. Oh, it looks like these guys do have similar armor as well. Yeah, they're going to get intercepted by my Macedonians. I'm not letting them escape. So this is the aftermath of the bloody battle we had there. These guys are now going to be pushing forward, supporting what will most likely be an assault from on top of the hill. God, these guys are awesome. Pulling my cavalry back, these guys are definitely hurt, and as I was saying before, these guys are going to want to reinforce, so that's what he's going to be doing. Charging forward right into my Rhodians. He does pick probably the best part in the line to do that. That's going to be right where I don't have any support, so a good move. This is something that I sometimes do. Is charge in with maybe not the best cavalry, but the cavalry at your disposal. But I have my Macedonian companion cav here to countercharge his archers. So he charged in with his archers, probably not the best move, but what his intention was to seize the moment, seize the opportunity, and knock out my guys. However, I had too much support in the vicinity, so he didn't know I had all these hidden royal peltas and various other troops, so they're going to be destroying his guys. And now more of these troops are going to be coming in. Those are more troops that he had hidden in the back, so these are going to be his very elite troops, and they're going to be charging forward to meet me in battle right here. He's going to try and clean up this messy fight, exploit the gaps that I had, so these guys should be turning around to reform, but you see he just evades those guys and charges right into my companions. Charging all along the flank here, but I do get a pincer on him with my royal peltas that were on this flank. Let's go ahead and get an overview so you know what's going on. So his cavalry basically enveloped all my troops. He's going for my slingers, going for my other guys, and pinning my forces in the front with his most elite troops, bypassing my pikes. So he's definitely doing a good job. However, on this side, it was more of a bloodbath in my favor. So I'm going to be trying to hold these guys, reform, especially with these guys, who you'll see are going to flank around the sides and try and pick off these troops. He's going to call it quits for some of these forces. So for instance, my guys here, they're going to be charging into the fray. This is the cavalry forces from the other side, so they're going to be saving the day here, basically pressing these guys into my pikes there, My opponent is going to decide to pull back in this engagement. Yeah, you can see in the center right there, my guys are dismounting his forces. His horse archers there are going to be pushed back by my own troops, and he's going to call it quits and try and retreat. But at the same time, don't forget that he's going to be continuing to pick off troops right here. So my slingers that had reformed, they're not going to be reforming for long. I'm be facing his troops here. Wow, no one is left behind. Maybe one guy. So he's just smashing any of my troops who are left behind. So I'm going to have to try and reform, which is what I'm doing here. And I know these guys are now isolated. I'm going to try and pick them off. So I'm going to make these guys do an about face, chasing the remainder of his troops off the battlefield. His noble cav I know are going to be very useful, but I can't get close enough to the support of his lines right there and his archers. So he's reforming behind the crest of this hill. My own troops here, I have positioned them in the forest. I'm going to try and curve around this flank, try and get the drop on this side here. And this, what I was telling you about, his horse archers racing across the battlefield. And I'm repositioning my troops, trying to pick them off, but they're going to be skirting around the outside, choosing the path in the forest to regroup with his men. Very good move. These guys are actually very isolated. Take a look at this. All my troops are over there. So that's why I did bring 3 of these pike units on the flanks. Something you always want to do is if you have a flank attack, make sure you have a contingency plan, so always group your guys with additional pikes. Over here I did have some units who were able to get some shots off, but again my opponent is in the forest, so not much damage done there. These guys are going to be anticipating the gauntlet. The cavalry are going to have to charge through right there. So I should be able to do a bit more damage, and I'm going to be trying to march my guys back to the center, reform that. I do send my guys here into the forest, just because my opponent doesn't know how many troops I've left behind here. They're in the cover of the forest. So what I'm trying to create in his mind is some panic and confusion. He doesn't see these guys, so maybe he's going to assume that my guys are here. He's going to divert too many forces, and that'll give cover for my guys here to reform. My opponent went a bit wider than I anticipated, so I'm not going to be able to do any damage to those guys. I'm going to be trying to, but he's going to reform behind this hill. Something I'll note on this battlefield, it's very cool. You're starting to see better and better maps in the rotation for Rome 2. I don't think any of them were custom built. These are all just picked off from the campaign map, so a bit disappointing. I wish they had a combination of Rome 2's gameplay and aesthetics along with Shogun 2's specific map creation for balance, because then Rome 2 would really take off for multiplayer. I think the balance is getting there for multiplayer. Lots of fun, especially the different faction dynamics. I'm really enjoying it. So now we're going to be trying to reform. Basically, my opponent is now going to push up with his forces. From the get-go, I really didn't know what he had hidden behind the crest of this hill, so now we're going to be seeing the revelation of his hand finally. Although I do know at this point I probably have kind of an advantage because of the fact that I think I got the best of this cavalry engagement. I've killed basically all of his 6 Ooh. That's kind of funny. Interesting. What I was saying is, yeah, I've killed the best of his horsemen, while at the same time continually feeding in more of my horsemen to balance out that fight. I killed 6 of his Sarmatian horse archers. He wasted those, and I lost, a decent amount of my companions, but they're still alive. That's going to give me the mobility I need to strike at the back of these pikes if they're going to be engaged. My opponent still does have archers, so he's going to be moving up with his own guys here, shooting at my guys who are exposed, and my opponent is now going to be trying to charge in with these guys. His noble blood cav, they're always warding me off, and that's why I have these guys, these slingers here, Balearics. They're going to be always facing, at least one of them, facing my opponent, so I can always get shots off at his guys. Yep, right there, picking off a couple of them. And you can see how I stagger them back. One of them is always reformed. He's going to charge in with his horse archers. Again, he misunderestimated how many men I had in the force, so yeah, right into my hidden pike units there. So my opponent is getting a bit desperate at this point. He knows that my slingers can pick apart his men at the end of the day, so that's why he's desperately trying to take out my slingers, although he is doing it at a bit of a waste to his own men and his own troop count. Over here, actually, something I didn't point out is while he was distracted over there, I went in and charged into his own noble blood cav here with my own Macedonians. So these guys are definitely elite troops. I don't know what they've done to boost their stats, but they're doing very well. So picking off units here and there, and now I've reformed into a single blob. He's going to charge forward. His archers are getting some shots off into my men, picking off a couple of my units, so I'm going to pull back, and my own slingers are going to be doing some damage to his men. Love the graphics of this game. That's something it has definitely an edge on for compared to the other games. Over here, gonna be targeting his men. At this point, I decided not to target his hoplites just because they're not gonna do much damage. So what I wanted to do was neuter his archers. So that's why I'm targeting his archers here. Neuter these guys. Once he loses his range, then basically he has to charge forward with his own foot troops, and I'm pretty sure I can take his foot troops. These are just hoplite units. I outrange them with my sarissas. So here we go. They're charging forward all along this front in a massive line. And now I'm going to unveil my troops I had hidden on this flank. So that's going to be my Royal Peltis, these units here. And then the Macedonians are going to be flanking around the side. These are definitely the saving grace of my army. They're going to be pushing around the back, charging the rear of his archers once his main line is engaged. He's pushing forward on all fronts. Let's go ahead and watch this charge. Hoplites into sarissas, that's not going to bode well for him. Although they do, yeah, because of their heavy armor and shielding, they're not going to die outright. He's trying to pin me down and drive these cavalry around the flanks. Probably the best move, which is why I pulled some guys here, kept them unengaged to ward off his cavalry. Otherwise, one solid strike from those guys and you take my troops out. He also charges around the flank here. Pikes against pikes, we'll see how that goes. His forces engaged over here. Should be an even fight, but now I charge into the back. Cavalry here can't find the best area to engage in. My pikes here are going to be charging in here soon enough. And yeah, my guys are reforming. He's getting around the flanks of my guys with his troops, so making the best use of hoplites. Over here, they're attacking at different angles, getting around my forces. And right here, yep, perfect moment, perfect place to strike. Some of them do get caught on my pikes, but the rest are going to be charging through to my line. However, because this was positioned in the forest, he's not able to get the best strike. It's slowing his guys down. And I'm going to reform to face, turn about to face these guys, and his charge has been neutered. These guys are also going to be turning around to face the threat. On this flank, his guys were actually defeating my guys, probably because I'm basically one row thin. His are two. He's just tearing my guys apart. So good thing I had more troops in the back to charge. And now, charging from the back with my own cavalry troops, Macedonians getting in on these guys here, as well as killing and driving off his what are these, Eastern archers, and they're going to have the ability to charge into the back. Levy pikes, sandwiching his guys on all flanks. So even at the start, I don't think these guys could take me, but just the overwhelming force that I'm projecting on all flanks means he's not going to be able to hold out. So definitely a fun game between me and my opponent. I think he had a good build. I think he didn't use it correctly. He got a bit too hasty on the attacks here. He just should have probably kept picking off my forces instead of charging in melee. He probably should have done that with one group and then kept the other firing at me. By engaging here with my own Macedonians and pikes nearby, he kind of sacrificed the advantage he had in cavalry because it was cavalry versus pikemen and cavalry. So that's why he lost there. But, you know, I did use the terrain to my advantage. Kill distribution you'll see here. Mostly it went to these Rhodian slingers and also these Royal Peltis and my general. And especially my companions, they did well. My opponent here just squandered those resources. And same with his Pontic Royal Cav and Noble Blood Cav. They didn't really do that well. Although these Bronze Shield Pikemen tore apart my own troops. But yeah, that's gonna be it. Hope you guys enjoyed. Let me again know in the comments below what you think I should do for my next Total War battle. See y'all next time.